it's actually been a very cheap option for Iran, according to my research. Iran has not had to spend huge amounts of money financing the rebels in Yemen's north, who are not from the same Shiite sect as those Shiites in Iran. And at the same time, its rhetoric in enticing and antagonizing Saudi Arabia into intervention in Yemen, which of course started in March 2015, has resulted in, well, two or three things. One, Saudi Arabia is financially under strain. Number two, Saudi Arabia is tied up, preoccupied with a war that looks pretty unwinnable, and that distracts it from what's happening in its northern flank in Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. And number three, Saudi Arabia loses credibility on the international stage and gives Iran the chance now to pose as the peacemaker, the one who's sending humanitarian supplies in. And so this has been a real win for Iran without actually having to spend that much money. Definitely we've seen a ramp up of Iranian involvement since, I think, 2014. I've personally been to check out the smuggling routes in the east of Yemen, along the coast. I did interviews along the coast about 4 weeks ago to work out what was coming in and how much was coming in, and also along the northern desert checkpoints in the east of Yemen. There is masses coming in, according to my on-the-ground interviews. And it's not all coming in over the Oman border. In fact, very little of it now seems to be coming in over the Oman border, although it probably was earlier. It's now coming in along that very porous eastern coastline. Iran's influence in Yemen is not just about its supply and support to the Houthis. And as said, I think that's historically been less than we've been led to believe. But there is a new cultural front opening. If you go through Sana'a, the capital of Yemen now, you'll see graffiti, billboards building up the leader, Abdul Malik al-Houthi, as the religious and spiritual spokesman of the Yemeni people. This is quite new. This has just been in the last 12 months or so. And there's also the 2 TV channels that are heavily sectarian, heavily anti-Saudi Arabia, which are being run out of Beirut, so presumably with the help of Hezbollah. And thirdly, even in Yemen's Far East, some of the tribesmen who have no sectarian bias, but they're technically Sunnis, but they wouldn't consider themselves sectarian, mentioned to me on several occasions, gosh, it's getting very Shiite over there in the west of Yemen, isn't it? We saw the celebrations for the Prophet Muhammad's birthday on TV, and everything's painted green. It didn't used to be like that. And so there is a definite feeling that the longer this war goes on, the more it plays into Iran's hands. One further observation that I meant to add earlier, which was in analyzing the statements coming out of Iran with regard to Yemen, and I'm sure we've all seen those very bellicose statements like Sana'a in Yemen will be the 4th Shiite or Iranian capital, that kind of thing. There was a lot of that. There were many, many statements of that regard coming out of Iran. But they were nearly all prior to March 2015, when Saudi Arabia intervened in Yemen. After that, the tone changed. And the statements coming out were, well, we really need to have peace, and we would like to broker some kind of diplomatic solution. And now the benign interpretation would be that Iran felt that the war was very harmful for its Houthi friends, but the more skeptical interpretation would be that this was actually part of a strategy, and that once Saudi had become embroiled and was involved, great, job done. Now we can afford to be the peacemaker.